All right. So, Terri Morgan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing well. We had a little mini catch up just now about what actually is happening here in I don't know the date, but in June 2023, June 7th, with the smoke and pollution and all this. So we're getting through it. But I was just mentioning to you before, yeah, leaving. I actually didn't finish the story because I got interrupted with a text message. But yeah, leaving the office yesterday, I wasn't. I've just been in a zone like this past week, so I didn't even know that this was pending. I don't know if other people even knew that or not, but I just walked out of the office and had no idea about anything happening, across the country,
Mhm.
in Canada. And I don't know, I just thought the worst. I'm like, what
Yeah.
is happening here? It's way too strong for this to be like a small fire in the area. And then, of course, the news trickles in. But we're staying safe, counting our blessings, being productive. So, yeah, so it's all good. And I'm so excited to have you on again as a guest. I really, really, really enjoyed talking to you. I guess that was a little over a year ago or so. And I think I hopefully mentioned it during that talk that, your product, your service, LumaFusion, that I've been using for several years now, it meant something to me to be able to talk to you, connect with you, learn about you as a person, learn about the history of the product that I use, and just made me feel more up to today and ongoing,
Yeah.
more like excited to be and proud almost, not to get sentimental, but yeah, happy to be using this product and be supporting a team that I really, connect with well. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. We're really proud of what we've done too. We started building LumaFusion in 2013. I don't know if you knew that.
Hmm.
It took us 3 years,
Wow.
and then released at the end of 2016. So we've been here with our product out for 6.5 years now.
Hmm.
And oh my goodness, what a ride it's been. Really
Yeah.
wonderful. And I mean, I have fallen in love with editing for a second time in my life. I fell in love with editing and storytelling when I was, in my 20s when I first started.
Right.
And now, let's say 30 something years later, I, I just being able to experience editing in a different way on a mobile
Yeah.
device in a touch environment and with tools that I helped design. So
Yeah.
they were exactly the way I wanted them as an editor. I have the ability to do all the things I want to do: insert, overwrite, replace, have
Yeah.
magnetic timeline or not, and have track based editing or not. So it was like everything I wanted made me fall in love again with
Hmm.
editing and just feel so, so lucky and grateful that I've had a career in storytelling and editing. It's just been, you know, one of the highlights of my life, really.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Yeah. And so you mentioned editing. So like for me, I think I mentioned this, maybe I did in our first conversation, but I've had sort of sentiment about my relationship with the process of video editing, which is to say, I love music. I love producing music, playing the piano, taking lessons again now, and just bringing immense joy into my life right now. And something kind of like a bit of an interesting realization happened the other day in that 98% of the content that I edit on my channel is not, well, it's for me, it's by me, it's created with me, but more importantly, it's like me on camera, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
okay, I take this episode for example, or a talking headshot or something like that. I've created this, I've done this, I said the words and everything, and now I have to go ahead and re-experience it again. And it was just always like, like I just want to do the next thing. That was always my sentiment. But so I've had a thought in my head about like, oh, does this mean that I don't enjoy video editing? And I thought that for a while, right? I'm like, okay, I have to do it because it's the world we live in. I'm a content creator, et cetera, et cetera. But now with this platform, Khordmaster Keys, which the majority of episodes have been virtual, I've started transitioning into some in person conversations and more so in person without me on camera. So like sort of me behind the camera producing
Yeah.
I haven't released any of this specific one yet. As a matter of fact, tomorrow the first one like this in this format's coming out. But it's
Nice.
literally me walking with a friend or a fellow entrepreneur or creator who's in the area and just having my small portable camera and recording
Yeah.
them. And what
Yeah.
I learned in this experience, so we're just having a conversation. I have the lapel mic clipped on them, the wireless one, and it's just very, very just casual. It's not, big clunky equipment or anything. And in the process of editing that video, Terry, I'm like, oh, this is fun. I'm not on camera at all, and I'm like watching someone else finally, like seeing something else
Yeah.
on the screen here that I'm editing. So it was just like a realization, and I'm still being very thoughtful with what that style of video is going to mean for this series. If it's its own thing, I'm kind of figuring those things out. But 1000%, like I love the idea of connecting with someone that way, highlighting them. Now they have a nice little 10-minute vignette. I don't know if that's the right word, but a 10-minute little segment of them that they could, that happens to be on my channel that I produce, obviously for free, but they could send to someone talking,
Right.
this particular person's an entrepreneur and she just landed a CEO position at a company that she was consulting for recently and they had a vacancy. And so just a fascinating story that happens to be a friend of mine that
Yeah.
we just connected. So yeah, I wanted to share that. Maybe someone watching might, I don't know, like consider that as a aha moment for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, storytelling and video editing, well, video editing is storytelling. And, historically, I was just an editor. So, not just, but I was an editor.
Yeah.
And a producer would just bring me a bunch of footage. Like, sometimes they'd have a script, but quite often they would have just shot something. And so the first thing I would do is look through that footage, trying to find the story. And the story has some elements that have to be there to make it a good story. And one of those elements is transformation. Like you have to transform from the beginning, and the character or the person you're interviewing or something in the story has to transform, not necessarily for the better, but something has to happen in that video. And that's
Interesting.
what I'm looking for as a video editor is those statements, those kind of moments where people realize something is different than it was yesterday or earlier, and how they transform themselves by the end of the video. And to me, that's just such an honor to be able to take part in finding their story when I'm editing. So I love that part of it. I also find it very much like tabletop puzzling. I love to sit with a puzzle at night, and it's so relaxing just to look for the pieces, and that's how I view editing. So it's not
Wow.
for me. It's never I have to edit this. It's always like, hooray! Now I've got my footage. I get to go explore editing, and so for me, it's just I can't imagine a career that would have given me more joy. I really don't. Maybe delivering babies or something. But,
Oh man.
other
I've
than that, no.
That's funny you mentioned. I've thought about that too. It's like, wow, not someone, a lot of people out there have that that honor and opportunity, but also like I can only imagine the level of stress I would imagine that's associated with that, the ups and downs. But
Yeah.
that is really something, huh? Like being in the most important moment in the lives of this couple, like especially the first baby, like day after day after day after day, is like I thought about that recently. It's funny that you mentioned that. It's like, wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
It would be cool, but also
Yeah.
very stressful. And video editing's it's like, for me, it's like that kind of joy you get by finding the story and sharing it
Yeah.
with people, but not stressful because,
Yeah.
it's more like a tabletop puzzle. So,
Right. Right.
and nobody dies, if you don't edit. Nobody
Right.
dies.
It's
So this is a
not
good
not
thing.
as high stakes as maybe other things might be, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a couple things jumped out at me with that. It's sort of like, it's very therapeutic. Like I'm like being thoughtful here. It's like the way that you look at it, the way that you approach it, and like I guess looking at, like, as a content creator, looking at the process of editing a video, not just, oh, I had this great idea and I filmed it and now let me just go ahead, and this is how I usually have done things, right? Let me just go ahead and just get this out to the masses as fast as possible at this point. That's not, and I'm just being reminded, I did we talked about this a year ago. I haven't necessarily taken the exact, that particular, but I definitely get in there now with like just being more thoughtful with it. But it is very interesting, like thinking about it through the storytelling lens, having conversations like this with other people who love video editing and understand it and understand what makes a good video, is just helpful for me to hear as well. Like, okay, let's, again, slow it down. Like, I know that the element for me that I struggle with in a lot of areas of my life is that go, fast, do multiple things at one time, listen to a podcast and go for a walk simultaneously. Or, rather than just, oh, I'm going for a walk. Let me not, and I've been doing this, like not put headphones in. Let me just walk and just be and just, just experience being outside rather than feeling like I need to get more information in my brain. That's like it's not the best approach.
Yeah, that hurry. I mean, it happens to all of us. I've got a million things going on, but I think one, to be able to slow down and try things editing, but also when you try them, even if they look reasonable, I can live with that. Being able to throw that away and saying, I have a new idea that would prohibit me from doing that thing I just did, but the new idea might be better. So I'm going to push that aside and try a whole different thing. Just that willingness to admit failure on one thing and move on to the next. I think, it's a humbling thing but it's also kind of freeing to say, I can create, and then I can throw these things away and create again. And I have faith that the second thing I create with the experience behind me of the first thing is going to be even better. That's the kind of, I think that's where you get the joy when you're editing, is just like constantly getting that, it's like little hits of adrenaline, like, oh, I can do better. And I did do better. And it was so fun. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is really cool. And I think I may have mentioned before too, from the music perspective and how Luma and video editing in, standard sort of horizontal timeline fashion really helped me just learn how to make my music better, in the sense of, just to kind of, give you a little glimpse into my world as a music producer. When you produce music, like typically you have like maybe a 4-bar loop that's just kind of repeating. Maybe you give it variation by removing the drums at one part or something, or removing another section at one part, and that gives it variation. That lets you stretch it out so that different parts sound a little bit different because you're omitting or putting different things in. But for me, as like a piano player, and as someone who really, really, really appreciates, music that is not just that, maybe that's the skeleton of it, but now there's a totally different, I don't know, either sound or sound effect, or maybe a little piano part that's nowhere else in the song. And so to do that, it's something that you kind of need to understand, that you need a horizontal sort of, edit in order to kind of make that happen. But when I produce music, I never ever use the horizontal sort of view. I always use this other just loop view. And so now kind of being, and I think I know I keep saying, I think I mentioned, in the first interview, but I think I definitely did talk about how I've edited some of my audio tracks in Luma, especially with the new effects and things like that are in there, because I'm so comfortable in that platform. And I was just like, sure, like why not do this? You know what I'm saying? Like I put a song there and then I added, a sound effect or just whatever I wanted to add to that. And it was just like, oh, this is really, it was just like a eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I can learn so much about music from you. Say, are there music apps that you use? Like mobile apps?
Oh, immensely. Yeah, that's what got me into the mobile music production world. So I would essentially create something in a Koala Sampler, which is one of the most popular apps, or a Korg Gadget 2. These are my two most used music production apps. As you probably are aware, Logic Pro, which is Apple's Pro platform, just came over to iPad.
Right.
I have thoughts on it, but I haven't like dove into it yet. It's not my speed because I'm so used to, and I really enjoy making stuff the way that in those two aforementioned apps that I just mentioned. But in this case, I would create something with that with one of those two apps, have like a 2 or 3 minute song with the variations that I mentioned before that are just omitting or adding, and then I can go into something like Luma and just add little sprinkles, little Easter eggs, like throughout the song, just kind of put that right there. So whoever's listening to it, they're like, wow, like this happened just randomly at this, that type of thing is very interesting to me. And another thing that's I just have to say this, it's the funniest thing in the world for me. Maybe others who have a similar sense of humor might appreciate this. But I now, Terry, am starting to display, trying to and doing more of my personality in the content that I put out. So I am a serious person, as most people kind of may look at me as, from the way that I deliver myself in conversations. I don't know if that's true. You guys let me know in the comments if you think I'm a serious person. I don't know. I'm just making an assumption there. But I just started doing something that was very just fun for me, which is story blocks. There's a ton of clips in story blocks, right? Yeah. Ton of just great footage and stuff. And so I thought, and you may or may not think this is funny, and that's okay. We might have a different sense of humor. That's fine. But I just thought it would be funny for me to just put random clips from story blocks in any hour-long conversation. And we're having a serious talk about this, or we're doing, we're talking about whatever, and then it just randomly cuts to just someone making pizza or something like that. And for me, there was a moment in this I'm in a Patreon, Henny, the business, of course. So I'm in Henny's Patreon, and me, him, and several others are in this thing that we meet up on Sunday nights for. And one of the other patrons in there I actually had on an episode, and his episode was the first that I displayed this side, of me. And then for, both of us must have gotten busy. So he watched it, and then we didn't like talk about the episode until like that moment when we were all in the Zoom together. And we just all I just had the biggest laugh of all time, because he was like, yeah, I saw that. And I was just like what is, he was so confused at it. Like, this is a mistake. Like, what's happening? And then I kind of gave them the spiel, like, yeah, this is just, something I just wanted to try out. And then Henny's like cracking up. I was like, you know what, it felt good. If at least one person is like watching it and gets that, understands that, oh, this is kind of like weird, but okay, I'm with it, So yeah, I thought I would share that. Maybe that might find its way into this episode. We'll see.
Right here.
Yeah, right there, exactly.
Yeah, say hi to Henny. He's a great guy.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just now starting a series because I had been, running a company with Chris, for it's going on 10 years now. Mm-hmm. And there's just a lot to do. And it took me, although, like I said, I've always loved editing, it kind of took me away from editing, the actual creative part of editing and the creative part of producing something. So recently I decided to do a series just about mobile, creation. Just only, and the funny thing is, I'm going to have to do some music for that, even though I know nothing about. I'm not a musician, and I'm going to have to do some animation. I'm not an animator, so I'm super excited that the first episode is coming out at the end of this week. And
oh, that's incredible! YouTube, which platform?
Yeah, well, it'll be on our YouTube channel. Yeah.
So on Luma's channel, you'll be producing a series on there.
Yeah, called The Curious Editor. Yes.
Oh, how cool.
So
That's exciting.
I'm going to try everything that I can possibly try. And one of the things that scares me the most, I'll be quite honest, is music. I'm not a musician, so I'm going to have to learn a lot, and I'm going to have to experiment a lot.
Hence your question. All right, so let's talk about this for a second. So this is all right. So this is probably a sign, because this is the second sort of conversation with someone who wants to learn about music and knows nothing about it and wants to learn. And I was talking to this person. I was like, oh, well, I don't have any such videos on my channel right now where I'm talking specifically to that person. And so I told him that I would make one specifically for Koala Sampler, which is a sample-based way of making music versus something like Chord Gadget that I mentioned earlier, which is like a sequence and synth-based way, like two different fields and capable of producing kind of total, in my opinion, different types of music. But I think that it would be awesome, as I'm ideating again. I'm like, all right, yeah, this is a good idea for me to make a video that is speaking directly to you and this person, John. He actually goes to Princeton University. I was there at the library just wanting to change my scenery, just do some work. So I had to check in with him. He was working there. We had a great conversation. He might actually come on board and do some tutoring with my tutoring business because he teaches math at a very high level and stuff. So I'm very excited about that. But I think it would be cool to make a video that is talking to you guys and others out there that are undoubtedly like, hey, where the heck do I start? There's too much information. There's way too many different things. Like what's like, distill it down for me. And that'll be like a challenging thing for me. Like, I know so much, I mean, I know a lot, I've been doing it for a while. So like, okay, how do I talk to that person? But I'm really good at explaining things and being very detailed. So I'm going to make that.
I just had an idea. Can I call on you for during one of my episodes when I get to the music part to help me through? That would be great. That would be just
100%.
really awesome to have like a professional weigh in on what the heck I'm doing.
That would be
you'll be
incredible.
Like, oh my God, Terri, what are you doing?
Right. I'll be like, why did I agree to this? This is probably one of the worst decisions. Just kidding. It would bring me joy to like, if I'm like, think about it. If I'm able to like teach you enough to get you going and doing your own thing, and then you make something and then I watch that video, I'm like, wow, like, I'd be very excited to see what the finished product, is like. So I'm 1,000% down for that.
I've got my story in my head and I have ideas of how I want it to sound, but actually have no idea how to make it sound like what's in my head. And I'm, like I said, not a musician. So,
right.
So melody.
The whole purpose with this series is for you, the curious creator. Was that the name?
The curious editor. Yes.
Editor. You want to make everything. You're not going to use a storybox song, or that's not the whole point is you're learning, you're curious, you're learning.
And I'm not going to use anything that has a subscription, not even storage. So everything is like, I just want to be able to have the knowledge that with the kit I have, which is just mobile devices and mobile stuff, and just the apps I can buy outright. I don't know if the 2 apps you were talking about are subscription or not, but I just wanted to do something that would be, you own the gear, and anytime you were creative, you could just do that without thinking about whether or not you should be keeping a subscription going. So
let's talk about subscriptions, because there's like 2 different, and those 2 apps, by the way, are not subscription based. Both of them are, both of them. One is like $5, and I've interviewed Koala Sampler's developer twice now, and he's an amazing guy, one-man show, doing some incredible stuff. And the other one is Korg. That is also not subscription, but I forget the price for that one. Maybe like 10 or 15, something, nominal.
That's
nothing
fine.
crazy.
I mean, you buy it and then it's yours, and
it's yours. Right.
That's
right.
the key.
Absolutely. But subscription, so in my view, a pro of a subscription model would be if you're subscribing to something that is that the company is going to do right by you, then the expectation or the thought is that you're paying whatever cost per month and that it's going to be poured into for years to come. That's a potential pro. But then when you look on the other side of things that are not subscription based, like Luma and like Koala Sampler, okay, for example, that these are things that are not subscription based and do that already anyway. Sometimes, like in your case and in Mark's case, like you have these new features that are free. Sometimes the new features are developmental and they take a long time to kind of get where they are, and so they cost. And you obviously can make the decision. What's your thoughts? On subscription versus.
I mean, I have a lot
not.
of thoughts about that. One is, I think for content, that's all. You're always buying content. You're always like for Storyblocks, we always subscribing ourselves to get that content, right? That's one thing. But we're running a company. We have a product we built. We sell the product. That's just 101 of business. It's been that way since thousands of years. You make something, you sell it. Yeah. You don't keep going back to the person saying, now, to keep that thing, give me some more money. That's just, to me, it feels not great to have a tool that I need for creating to be held above me like that. I don't like that at all. We have not gone subscription with LumaFusion, and I would say, I'd probably rather go out of business. People are gonna like whatever. I mean, if that, I would rather go out of business than charge our users a subscription. I'm just gonna say that.
Okay.
And I think that, it's like, if Michelangelo was was painting the Sistine Chapel and someone said, hey, dude, we're going to come take your paint away, if you don't give us some more money, we wouldn't have art, right? So it's like, I don't see and LumaFusion's been out like 6.5 years. When we spend a couple years developing something like MultiCam, we do need to be paid to pay our developers and to pay the rest of our crew. But that's what you're paying for. You're paying for that time we spent, and that's it. That deal's over. We go have fun. I also think that we are incredibly passionate about what we do. We want people to be using our app in all parts of the world, no matter what their circumstances are. That's why we went to Android. It wasn't like a play to make more money, because you don't make that. Nobody makes a lot of money on Android. It's more that we wanted our tools to be available to a wider audience. And Android serves that wider audience. If we were to charge a subscription for LumaFusion, people all over the world would not be able to use it to create. And that it would feel to me just not something I'm not willing to do. I don't know. I'm sure there's more. I could talk about this forever, but I just think, I'm pretty happy that we're not doing a subscription.
For sure. I agree. I agree with a lot of what you just said there. And I think having, this is just like an idea, but I think having an option for something to be subscription, or you can pay for it outright if you wanted, but if you do pay for it, like it's going to cost something that makes sense, I guess, for the original company. Yeah. That was during a live stream I was doing when I was kind of wrapping my brain around, because I have an MBA degree, right? I have a business degree. I watch a ton of Shark Tank. I love that show. I'm an entrepreneur myself. So I kind of put the hat on to say, all right, well, what makes the most sense for both the business and your end user? And I think, also talking to a lot of people when the news, like for Final Cut and Logic came out, and having a lot of great conversations just about it, right? It was insightful for me to kind of understand that, yes, the majority of people feel the same way. They honestly do feel the same way, that I've kind of learned. But let me go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to address what you said about
Please.
Having an option for a subscription.
Please.
A subscription literally would make us way more money. I'm not going to deny that. Like that, from a business standpoint, we would make more money on a subscription, and I'll tell you why. Because people forget to cancel their subscription.
Exactly, and that's the dangerous part. Yes.
And as a human being, this is not how I want to make my money from people's failure to remember, because I forget all sorts of stuff. That's why. And I can tell that's true because I can look at, yearly and monthly subscriptions. If yearly, if the monthly adds up to more than the yearly, you would think more people would do yearly. But the fact is, people get the monthly and they forget to cancel. And I can see that literally 100%. In the numbers. So I don't, not
for
me.
You at all.
No.
Yeah, I get it. I look loud and clear. And so one of the things that I was excited about is, like, I've kind of, and I have my iPad here, I've gotten like quite a few friends over the years of being a content creator that I've met that are, again, in similar spaces, most of which are doing music, a lot of which use Luma. So I actually pinged a few of them, and I wanted to start off and read one message from, I'll give him a shout out, my man Dylan Paris, who's a fellow iPad music producer on YouTube. And he told me to let them know that members of the community really appreciate all the years of work they've done to get the app to where it is now.
Oh, that's
And I
very
was like,
sweet.
and
That's
I
very sweet.
isn't that like for me, like hearing things like that, you know, sometimes we don't know exactly if we are or how much we're moving the needle. Um, Likes and things like that aren't really substantial to kind of
Yeah.
show us, you know what I'm saying? So like sometimes hearing things, as I've learned, that's like the biggest thing for me. Like I love making a positive impact in people's lives. So when someone shares something direct with me, like, oh, your consistency of putting, like I've heard this a few times, of putting content out, your consistency with it for years, like that inspires me. Or someone who's thinking about doing something, like seeing you kind of take the leap of faith and kind of do your thing, that made me start wanting to do what I'm doing, and now they're doing great. Like I love that so much, more than almost anything else about being a content creator. So I said I'd be remiss if I didn't share that with you.
That's very kind and very nice. I mean, I think you're right. Those kind of comments really make this really wonderful to do.
Yeah,
Um,
for
yeah.
sure. So let me also ask this question. So I might be maybe I don't know if you guys have numbers on this. I'm kind of curious. I might be one of the only people in the world that was like extremely excited that this existed. But I, of course, do all my editing on my iPad.
Hmm.
And you know, sometimes like if I'm at a cafe or something and I'm using Luma and I'm finishing a big project and it's writing and then uploading or whatever, like the iPad is off to the side, right? That's it has to be on that screen. Bring my laptop, do some work, multitask, you know, with the second device, no problem. And the other day, like I realized that Mac computers can run apps as well. I didn't know that this existed, right? So I downloaded LumaFusion on here, and not that I was planning on doing any like serious edits on it, but my like what I sometimes would do is like to offload a big uncut video or something that I have at like an event or whatever. Sometimes I upload those to my channel and put it as private, and then I'm still figuring out what to do with those. Maybe I might do like a members only membership video or something, but like these aren't like ones that are just going to be put on the channel because no one probably cares about a 2 hour long of me doing whatever. Although I have released some of them like that just to kind of see. I have to kind of do a little bit of market research, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that I can use Luma on my Mac, and you know, it doesn't work obviously the same exact way because it's a touch based platform, but I was curious because I went on Reddit and I was even asking around there, and I was curious to see if anyone uses it this way. And one person had a thought in there that was quite interesting, and I want to kind of feel this to you. He was basically saying like, hopefully LumaFusion does not put any resources in developing the non-touch capabilities of this app, because that might take away from the main core audience. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, like if there was some of that capability, like that might be something kind of interesting. So I'm kind of interested in your thought process. Like, are you guys touch iPad, touch, or iPhone, etc., touch first, or have you even thought about the consideration of using, having the program on Mac?
Well, we put it there on as a developer, you have a choice whether to put it on the M1
I
Max or
see.
not.
Okay. Okay.
So that was our choice, and we still focus on touch. That I think the experience of touch editing is so beautiful and wonderful that I personally don't like gravitate towards the M1 Mac for editing. I totally have my iPad Pro. And because my eyes are a little bad, I have the 12.5 and
12.
I'm set, right?
Yeah.
But
Right here, 12.9. Let's go. Yep.
making that choice to put it on M1 means that we do have to be responsible to at least make the menus work and make the expected interface for M1 to be, and we're slowly adding capabilities. They're like, people on desktop should be able to do this or that. And so we've added those things, but it's not a big, resource drain for development or anything. It's something you can fill in between bigger stories, as we call them, or features as we develop those. Yeah, so it's not a drain or anything, but I think it's not our first priority either.
For sure. For sure. And remind me the name of the interviewer or the show that you were on that I messaged you about when you were talking multicam. Do you remember the name of that platform?
Oh,
What's it's like what's in it's like a question. You know what I'm talking about though, right? I'll link it below. Or are you not
okay.
sure? You
I'm
were a
not sure.
guest. Yeah, you were a guest on a platform right around the time multicam came out. I think it was a black guy who he really had a dope setup, and I thought he did a great job interviewing you. And I think I mentioned him to you. Maybe it's
Yeah.
like what's up photo or something. What's in photo or something like that. I think,
Yeah. Let
but
me
I'm
think
drawing a
of the
blank.
name. I'll
Okay,
think of the name. Yeah,
it might
we'll
come
put
to
it
you.
in
Yeah,
there.
for
I know
sure,
who you're
for sure.
talking about. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about multicam. I was gonna
Okay.
I referenced that because I want to link that video below too, so that people like you spoke about it at the
Right.
time that it was either right before coming out or like right when it came out. But I wanted to kind of yeah chat through a little bit from your end, maybe even more so on now that you're getting back into editing yourself. Like what has multicam meant for you as a editor, and maybe I guess any if you have any stories of other people who've used it, like how things are going on the multicam front.
Yeah, I think, well, it's a completely different way of editing. And it dives into a different way of shooting as well, and the expectations of how fast you can produce something and get it edited. When it's mostly about, you know how I was talking about storytelling and how when I have a group of footage, I'm looking for the story in that footage.
Yeah.
Multicam lends itself more to there was a story that happened, and what's the best way I can cut that? The fastest way I can cut that using my instincts to, tap away on my cuts, right? Um, so it's a different style of editing. Traditionally, NLEs that put multicam in the NLE, and I've worked for many of those. I've worked for Lightworks, Fast Multimedia, Avid. I might be missing one, Pinnacle. They all had a version of multicam, and it's always been like kind of, ugh, like, you really don't want to, it's like, okay, now I have to do multicam because someone shot it that way. And that is like the easiest way to edit multiple streams that happened at the same time and be able
Sure.
to know what frame corresponds with the
Sure.
other
Sure.
clips, right? That's the
Yeah.
only way, really. I mean, you can fudge it, but that is to sync those together and say, oh, which shot do I want at this very moment in time? But the truth is, with all editing systems, it is the hardest thing to develop because there's three parts you go through. The first is finding your clips and synchronizing them. And then the second is switching between the different angles as you're playing forward. And then the third is, what do you do with that thing once it's synchronized and cut? Is it a clip? Is it then a bunch of individual clips that can go out of sync? Can you put a color correction on the original angle and have it
Yeah.
all color corrected? Or do you have to do each one
Yeah.
individually? All these questions come up. And what it has led to is, I think, probably the first company that did multicam. I don't know who that was, but I think actually even Lightworks had multicam. But it kind of became, well, this is the facts of multicam, and here's the workarounds. Here's how you have to do that. And we know it's not always going to work, and you're going to have to sometimes do a little workaround to get the. I had seen that happen over and over in every multicam implementation, even the modern ones like, in DaVinci and Premiere and every one of them basically is a burden to the editor that has to use them. And I wanted to overcome that with our multicam. And we took a long time to do it. And I have to say, most of that was us grappling with how can we make a 3-step process be elegant, fun, obvious, just like, so you don't have to look in the user guide to figure it out. So it took a long time, and it took a lot of usability testing, a lot of redesigning, a lot of deep discussions and whiteboards and what ifs, you know. And
Yeah.
so we finally did that with our multicam. And I think what we came up with is absolutely stunning. It's a beautiful experience where you put your clips into the synchronizer, you press a button, they're synchronized, press another button, you're cutting. And then you get this clip on the timeline that you can either treat as an individual clip, or you can tap again to get into the individual things. And you can color correct the source angles, or you can color correct the individual cuts, or do effects or whatever. So, and yeah, it's just turned out so fun to use. And for people like you who are doing studio stuff, or any kind of YouTube video where you have the top-down camera, you have a
Yeah.
couple
Oh
angles,
man. Yep.
man, you can just throw them in there, cut it, and be done.
Right.
It's so simple.
Right.
Um, I love it, and as you can tell, I'm kind
Yeah.
of kind of into it.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Let's see. One of the things that jumped out at me actually is the process that you just kind of laid out, which is once you've gotten to the point where everything is cut, or cut meaning cut to different cameras the right way that you like it. Now, what about the editing part afterwards, to like maybe you want to trim it down or whatever the case is. Certainly you're not doing that before the camera cuts, right? Because then things are out of sync and stuff. And so the way you just described it, and I haven't even, I'm excited to even try it out this way, but the way you're describing it, certainly you have like the one lane, I guess in this case, right? Kind of set there. So like I should be able to click on it, and if I wanted to trim out this part where I say or this whole section, and maybe that section has two different camera cuts or whatever, no matter what's in there, you can just do it the same way you would as if it was one piece there, right?
Yeah,
Just
so
trim it.
we treat the multicam clip like a container that represents continuous time. So at any point after you've switched and everything, you have this container with all your cuts in it. You can go back and, for instance, say, oh, I got the wrong audio on that angle. I could tap on that, go back to the synchronizer, remap the audio to a different angle, and everything will update. But I can also go in there and say, I know this is continuous time, but I'm done with continuous time. I want to put an interview in the middle of this that wasn't multicam, right?
Sure.
You can cut that right in, insert it right in. It'll break it into two multicam pieces.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So then
okay.
you are just using it like clips. And typically, at least my multicam edits so far they look like just a bunch of different clips on a timeline that I've mixed with other media.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, actually, now that I've cut it next to this other clip, I can see I would be better to use the close-up. Tap on the multicam clip,
Make the
switch
change there.
switch switch to the other angle for that cut.
Yeah.
And it's done. So it's I think we've hit on something that really is flexible.
Definitely. So the idea of going into the switcher mode and having, I guess I'm thinking of two different distinct ways of switching, one of which is by letting the video play and you kind of know what's coming up. So you're like, okay, right here in real time, as you just described, tap, tap, tap. And then the other idea is not having it play continuously, but maybe just going, like dragging and going to the section. Is that a way that you also say people could? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, you can either do that on your timeline. Like I think that's the way I used it anyway recently on my little episode that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I had a lot of clips that had two cameras. Not every clip did, but a lot of them did. So I synchronized those. And then they are just sources for me, knowing that I can cut it and go in and switch it to another angle at any time that I'm editing. I'm like, oh, actually, this doesn't cut right with this wide shot. I need to cut to the close-up. And instead of going and finding a close-up, I'm just like, oh, I just open the switcher and switch.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fun.
It
some, yeah,
Makes it
abilities.
will make things easier for sure, 1,000% when you're using two or more cameras, and it's up to the user, up to me, up to the people that are, maybe some people are, I don't know, on the fence of, paying the extra money or that type of thing, and are not sure if maybe they bought it already and they're just trying to see if indeed it works better for their workflow. But and I'm speaking from experience, we know how to edit the way that we edit. Like, a lot of us know it really well without multicam, right? We have a workflow that works for us, right?
Hmm.
And now that there's something that, by all accounts, right, is going to make things easier, it's not, even though it is very easy to use, it's not necessarily going to make things easier right away. Not until you spend some time, learn it, have a day of just like, oh, I'm not pressed to release a video today. I'm just going to experiment with this today. And that's what I did after, like the very first time when I was using it. I was like, I understood what was happening, but I was also like, I'd rather just be in my regular mode because I'm so used to that.
Yeah.
But just taking your time and kind of just experimenting, I think helped me out tremendously.
Yeah, and then you do save time in it. So that's what I meant. I think when I first started talking about it, I said, well, it's kind of like it changes the way, maybe not the way you shoot, but the way you plan on doing your project. Like you have an idea in your head. This is the steps I'm going to take to get through
Yep.
this project, right? And when you know you have these extra tools and you know what they can do, you all of a sudden can see a really faster, easier way of getting
Oh yeah.
through. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's
That
not that
makes.
it's not that hard. As anything new, you just try it out, and you need to get your head around what the possibilities are that
That's
it
right.
opens up.
That's exactly right. And I mean, I mentioned, with Logic Pro for me, for example, like that's something that's also new, and it's different. It's so different. Let me ask a few questions here, like sort of rapid fire. We talked about subscription model. We didn't talk about, other than the subscription aspect, Final Cut. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts? Have you used it, and what are your thoughts on the platform, just as it stands today?
I mean, you know, first of all, I just want to say, nobody wants to compete with Apple, Blackmagic, and Adobe.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
we led the path here. This is a category that we created, professional editing on iOS.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm flattered that three of the biggest players have shown up on the platform to do a similar thing to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Apple has added a couple things that are cool, but not out of reach for LumaFusion, like drawing on the video or whatever. But I think that it feels like maybe a little bit. I mean, I think if you're a Final Cut editor, you'll just be happy to have it because, why not? But it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
round trip. So if you're a Final Cut editor and you're editing on your desktop, you're not going to be sending it over to the iPad Final Cut anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd
Mm-hmm.
almost you have to then start changing the way you plan your
Sure.
production.
Right.
Just like with multicam, okay, now I have this new tool. How do I have to replan? And the question is that if you're already used to editing on the desktop, are you going to find Final Cut for iPad a big value to what you're
Mm-hmm.
used to? And I don't know the answer to that. I know that we have a lot of customers, and actually influencers have come out, and when Final Cut was announced, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have so long, LumaFusion. We're gonna have to leave you. Unfortunately, we loved you, but we're gone." And then
Yeah.
they came back and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, never mind. We're back."
Right. Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
because, and I really believe this is true, because we really are passionate about how you edit and making the experience, not just making a product to sell. We're
Mm-hmm.
we're
Mm-hmm.
into the experience of editing. And we've created this experience that it flies across iPhones, Androids,
Yeah.
Android tablets, Chromebooks, any kind of iPad that's down to anything that can run 15.4, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
like, this is an experience that we've created. Um, it is a different thing than Apple moving Final Cut over, or taking parts of Final Cut and putting it on iPad. I think it's just a different thing. Will we lose sales over it? Probably. I mean, who knows? But it's not that I don't care about having a healthy company, but what I when you're running a race and people are following you, you don't look back to see what they're doing. You're like, because that will slow you down. We just
Yeah.
have our path. We have the things that we've promised and that we're going to go forward with. And that's what we're doing. I can't control what Apple and Blackmagic and Adobe do. They're going to do their own thing. But I still think that we're the leader of the pack as far as elegant, professional video editing. That is and we're frankly a step above all of them when it comes to usability and the joy of editing.
You mentioned something just now that really spoke to me a lot, that you just said, actually. But one thing in particular, writing on the video with your pen.
Yeah.
Is that something that you can either speak to right now, or maybe you can't, but is that something that you think enough of the LumaFusion users would want, and something that you guys are considering?
I mean, I've always thought it would be fun. I don't necessarily find that I lack the ability to do that. LumaFusion is a quite open app. So, like, if I want to draw, I go to Procreate and draw.
Sure.
And then I export it, to LumaFusion. So that's the way I do it. I think it's like not missing. It's just, we haven't. I think you can do so much more advanced drawing in Procreate.
Okay.
And then export that live drawing from Procreate to LumaFusion. And you can do that either as, they can export their animated files, or you can actually create and hand draw animations and export those to LumaFusion.
And you have to use like a green, the key or something to remove the...
I mean, yeah, we could use the green screen right now. There's things coming up that's going to make that easier. Whether we want to add, the ability to draw on the screen, I think for me, I would want a few more things to make that a whole experience. One would be motion tracking with that. I don't want to just splatter, like spray paint on my video. That's pretty boring, but I would want to be able to paint out someone's eyebrows and make them into flowers or whatever, and then have it motion track those. So like it's a sellable feature. You can put it on a list. You can draw on your video, but is it useful? I don't know. I think it's limited how useful it is. Sorry, that wasn't very rapid fire.
No, that's okay. No. I think that question is one that that I've tried using. I mean, I love Procreate. I'm like spending more time in it and stuff. The few times that I've tried to do the export thing, I think Henny actually had a video. I know he had a video actually, because that's why I saw the tutorial. And I tried it, and I was like, it doesn't look as sharp on there. Something is the key, or something about it is not exactly, I didn't do correct, or something like that. Maybe, I'm not sure. But so then that made me just like kind of stop immediately. And for me, like thinking through, going back to the music production, there's some people out there that use this music app and they bring this one into it, and they have several different things that they use together. I've learned over the years, I hate it so much. I need like, and this is just me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm one of one kind of thing. I am a very unique individual. But like, if we're in a world where, hey guys, today we're talking about, okay, here we go. We're talking about the three best beginner music production apps for you guys to use right now. And talking to Caroline, who's incredible. I think I mentioned that to you before.
Hmm.
And she's shared with me just ways to use the favorites in the titles section, so you can just quickly go to titles, quickly go, have your favorites up top. You can bring them in. So I've been using that, which is nice for sure, and have my text and everything on screen. But yeah, to mix things up and just be able to just write it on there that's the other thing, as the video is happening. And the way I'm thinking of it is like the video is ongoing and my writing on the screen, the speed, how fast I'm writing, the way that I'm writing, it's like it's happening in real time kind of thing.
Yeah.
That would need to be like done in Procreate and then brought in and then change the speed of it so that the speed matches up the way.
Oh,
Do you know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Does that make sense?
No, what you should do? Okay, so what you would do is you take you export a clip into Procreate. Sorry.
Oh, a
So like,
video clip.
yeah, I mean, it'll
Oh,
make an animation. If you want to hand animate,
oh,
you could do
yeah, yeah.
you export the video and then hand animate. And that's something I do in my series that I'm coming out with. Actually,
Okay.
the first episode has some of that hand animation in it, and
Okay, cool,
it
cool.
is very crisp. But I
Yeah.
think, that's not saying that we're not going to, add it just because we can do it in Procreate. I just love Procreate. I think the tools in there are so amazing,
So deep. Yeah, for sure.
so deep. We could never, we're not going to build Procreate inside of LumaFusion. So my first choice is to go to the experts in drawing for mobile, which is
Yeah.
Procreate, right?
Yeah.
But still, we could put some things in LumaFusion to do a paint and motion tracking and stuff like that. I'm more into that kind of. I
Yeah.
want to be able to motion track if I'm painting. I don't want to just splash it on there, because then I could
Gotcha.
just make any kind of thing in another app.
And make it better. So motion track, I understand a little bit of what that is, but you're saying like motion track is if you're there and you're moving on the screen, like the video, the frame is moving based on, I'm saying, follow this
Yeah.
part of your face, like that type of thing.
Yeah, so if
Okay.
I had the Earth sitting in my hand and I moved it across the screen, the Earth is going to stay perfectly in my hand, right?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay,
like you
okay.
could block out things on videos, get rid of, I mean, I guess you could get rid of blemishes if you had blemishes, but you could get rid of a car license plate. You could draw something on someone's head or face or
Gotcha,
body,
gotcha. Okay.
whatever, and it
I've
would
seen
follow them
these.
around. That's what we
Yes.
want, right? That's the
Okay,
ultimate
okay.
thing that
I
I'm not saying that we're hot and heavy doing that. I'm just saying if I was to do it, that I would want to go there. That's
That's
where I want to go.
the
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
What about hover on the Apple Pencil, which I haven't used because I don't have the version of the iPad here. But hover, being able to like, I don't know, go through the timeline or something for people who do have one of the latest iPad Pros. Is that something that you guys have looked at?
I
And are
mean,
you
that's
familiar with
something
that?
that's, easy to add. It's not that we couldn't add that. I think,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that our timeline is a center playhead
Mm-hmm.
makes that less necessary. Like
Mm-hmm.
Final Cut has a moving playhead, which
Mm-hmm.
is not it. Personally, I prefer that my finger doesn't get near the edge of the iPad when I'm trying to do something,
Sure.
because you can become disconnected from the iPad. It's different than having a mouse. When you're on a screen with a mouse, even if you go off the screen, your mouse still works. That
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
happen
yeah.
on an iPad, right? So
Gotcha, gotcha.
so we have a center playhead. Could we use it for scrubbing things? The hover, sure, we could do that.
Well, you know what we're almost out of time for our next thing that we have to do. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I'm just looking at our color schemes. We're kind of matching color scheme today,
Oh, we
aren't we?
are.
That's pretty cool,
Yay.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I have to say, you know what? Let me call that out in case anyone out there didn't notice. Like that's actually
I
what's
know
happening
we
right
are
now.
coordinated.
Yes, like 100%. Like this is very, very, very impressive. I just want to take a minute to just say thank you for being a follow-up guest. I really enjoy our conversations. I can talk to you for another hour, but we got things that we need to do, and we'll definitely do this again when it makes sense to do it. Right? Like you
Right.
have obviously my email and stuff. Like you're always welcome to be a guest on the platform. There's always going to be things I think that we can talk about. I didn't get to any of these guys' questions. I had all these questions here. I didn't get to
Oh,
any of them. Actually, hey, let me. I literally will do rapid fire.
okay.
So
I'll try.
okay, so the pencil was one thing that we just talked about. Someone said, are any new transitions coming?
Yes.
Cool. We have a lot of transitions already, but more are coming. That's awesome. Anything like the wheel on Final Cut Pro?
Um, do you like the wheel on Final Cut Pro?
I haven't even used it. I guess someone does.
I mean,
I haven't
I,
used
I
it,
don't
so I
know
can't
about
speak
that
to it.
one. Yeah,
Okay,
I
fair enough.
prefer or if you press down and hold on the play button, you can get a scrubber that
Oh
scrubs frame
yes,
by frame
yes.
and stuff.
That
I
people
prefer
may
that,
not
but
even know about. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great point. And this actually Henny asked a question here. So, any thoughts on putting AUV3 effects on the master audio channel? I'd love to be able to master my audio directly in the app for content distribution. Does that make
On the
sense?
master audio channel.
AUV3
Well,
effects on the master audio channel.
okay. Well, we do support the AUV3 effects for now.
That's
We
right.
didn't
Yeah,
for a while because they were causing crashes and we couldn't control. So then we have to vet each new one when and disable them if they cause crashes
sure.
because they're third party things. So we can't control that. But I'm not sure. Henny, give me an email. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to make sure I'm answering his question, but I don't know.
Answering. He said that's basically it for him, but that's good enough for me. If that's only one thing that he has a question, like, hey, that's good. And then I think there was one more. I think you kind of talked about this already, but when it comes to transforming or free scaling, so he wants to be able to like, I want to be able to use clips of videos and scale them as if they were floating somewhere on the room, as opposed to the basic picture-in-picture format that we currently
So
have.
like a 3D
I couldn't even
rotation.
understand it, but yeah, it sounds like you're.
I
Yes,
think,
that's what
yeah,
he's. Yeah.
floating
Uh huh.
3D. Um, I don't know how easy that is. I would assume, you know, how about I answer that with a developer and then I can get back to you on
Get
that,
back.
Kevin, and then you
That
can
works.
send that on.
I'll send it on to Brandon. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so we'll hop on our other meeting. I just want to say thank you again so much. I'm very much looking forward to checking your. Let's see if I can say it. I'm not going to say it right. The second word is editor. Curious
The
editor.
curious
There
editor,
we go.
yeah.
The curious editor. Got it. Got it at the last second. I'm very very excited to see what that looks like. I think just hearing about it, and then watching it, and knowing that you know did it all is gonna, I think, very much inspire me. Like especially the
Oh,
stuff on the
thank you.
screen, like writing and all that. I want to do that. I want to be a better video editor. I want to enjoy the process. I want to make films and videos
Yeah.
maybe less frequently, but just more polished rather than just out. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah, the second episode has a lot of that, a little character animation that's
Oh,
interacting, so you'll like it.
sweet. From Procreate and Broaden, like that
Yes.
similar process. All right,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
cannot wait. That's gonna be good. All right, thank you so much, and I
Thank
will
you,
see
Kevin.
you in a few seconds.
Okay.
All right, bye.